Welcome to Dreamy Tales, a place where gentle, relaxing stories will guide you into a deep sleep. On this channel, we'll be sharing soothing stories to help you unwind and forget the worries of the day. If you enjoy these peaceful moments, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you won't miss any of our bedtime tales. Let's create a space of relaxation together each night. Now, before we dive into tonight's story, let's take a few moments to relax your body and mind. Find a comfortable spot to sit or lie down. Gently close your eyes and take a deep breath. Inhale slowly, feeling the fresh air filling your lungs, and slowly exhale, letting the tension in your body gradually melt away. Repeat this 3 more times. With each breath, feel yourself becoming more relaxed and ready to enter the magical world of stories. Now, loosen your shoulders, gently massage your face, and release any remaining tension. Pay attention to any areas in your body that still feel tight, maybe in your neck, back, or legs, and gently let them relax. Next, we'll do a short guided visualization. Imagine yourself in a beautiful garden under the night sky, with the soft moonlight shining down. You can hear the rustling of leaves in the breeze, the sound of water flowing gently in the distance. Feel the cool breeze brushing against your face. Now that your body and mind are relaxed, let's step into tonight's story. But before we begin, remind yourself that you deserve these moments of relaxation, and let go of all worries as you listen to each word. And now, as you are fully relaxed, let's begin our journey into tonight's tale. Allow my words to guide you into a world of dreams and serenity. Relax and listen slowly. Hello, dear friend. Come in, settle down, find a cozy spot, maybe wrap yourself in something soft and just breathe. That's right. A slow, gentle breath in and a long, soft breath out. Let your shoulders relax. Let the worries of the day just gently drift away, like little clouds on a warm breeze. We're going on an adventure tonight, a very quiet, very gentle adventure to a place far away, a place made of soft light and sleepy whispers. Imagine a world. Yes, just imagine it now. A world called Ethelgard. Ethelgard wasn't like our busy world. It was a place of deep quiet, a place where the air itself seemed to hold ancient secrets, whispered only to the patient. The sky over Ethelgard was famous throughout the gentle cosmos, not for grand spectacles but for its nights. Oh, the nights on Ethelgard were simply breathtaking. They were woven, you see, literally woven from starlight. And in a village nestled amongst trees so old they remembered the first sunrise, lived our friend. Her name was Zephyrine the Weaver. But she wasn't just any weaver. Zephyrine didn't work with wool or silk or cotton. Oh no. Zephyrine worked with light. Specifically, she worked with the delicate, shimmering, luminous threads that connected the stars to her world. The cosmic threads, they were called. These threads weren't visible to just anyone. You had to have a certain kind of eye, a certain kind of heart to see them. You had to look with quiet wonder. Zephyrine saw them as clearly as you see your own hand. They shimmered, each thread a different color, a different frequency of starlight, vibrating with the gentle hum of the universe. Her job, her gift, her joy was to tend to these threads, to ensure they flowed freely, to untangle any little knots that might form, to mend any weak spots. She had a special loom, made from the silver of fallen moonbeams and the wood of a tree that only grew where starlight touched the earth. It didn't make a sound as she worked. Instead, it hummed softly. A vibration felt deep in your chest, like a lullaby. Her fingers, nimble and light, would dance among the threads. She knew each one, knew its song, knew its story. There was the bright, silvery thread from the star Seraphina, which brought clarity and calm. There was the deep, indigo thread from the star Quietude, which brought restful sleep. There were threads of gold, of rose, of softest violet, each carrying a unique blessing from the heavens. And when the threads were well tended, the nights on Ethelgard were pure magic. The starlight didn't just speckle the sky, it pooled on the ground like gentle, shimmering water. It lit the paths through the ancient woods, guided the sleepy creatures home, and filled the hearts of the Ethel Guardians with a profound sense of peace and belonging. Children would fall asleep under skies that felt like a warm, starry blanket. Dreams were vivid and sweet, woven from the same light that covered the world. Zephyrine loved her work. She would spend hours, sometimes entire nights, at her loom, her heart full of quiet contentment. "It's like painting with silence," she would whisper to the threads, or singing with light. Her home was small and cozy, filled with the soft glow of the starlight that seeped through her windows. She kept pots of dreaming moss on her windowsill, a plant that thrived on starlight and smelled faintly of cinnamon and sleepy sighs. For generations, the nights on Ethelgard were brilliant, a testament to the care and patience of the Weavers of Starlight, and most recently, to Zephyrine. But lately, something had felt off. It started subtly. A thread here or there seemed a little duller. A spot where the starlight usually pooled brightly was just less luminous. Zephyrine noticed, of course. She always noticed. She tried to tend to the fading threads, to coax their brightness back, but it was like trying to hold on to mist. The dullness would creep back. Then it became more noticeable. The indigo threads from Quietude were losing their depth. The silvery threads from Seraphina seemed fuzzy somehow. The starlight wasn't pooling as brightly. The paths through the woods were a little darker. The dreams of the children, Zephyrine heard whispers, weren't quite as sweet. A heaviness began to settle over Ethelgard at night. Not fear, not really. More like a deep, quiet sadness, a sense of loss. Zephyrine felt it most acutely. The threads, which were her companions, her art, her connection to the universe, felt listless in her hands. Her loom, usually humming with gentle energy, was quiet, almost silent. She tried everything she knew. She used her finest moonbeam needles. She sang the ancient songs of light. She sat for hours, just trying to listen to the threads, to understand what was wrong, but they seemed distant, faint. "What is happening?" she would ask the quiet air, her voice soft with worry. "Why are you fading, my beautiful threads?" She looked up at the sky, and even there, it seemed the stars themselves were a little less sharp, a little less numerous. No one in the village blamed her. They knew Zephyrine was dedicated, that she loved the stars more than anything. But they felt the change too. A quiet anxiety began to stir in hearts that had long known only peace. The conflict wasn't a roaring monster or a sudden disaster, It was a slow, creeping dimming, a loss of connection. Zephyrine realized she couldn't fix this just by her usual methods. The problem wasn't in her technique, it was deeper. It was as if the very source of the thread's energy was weakening. But why? She decided she had to understand. She had to leave her cozy cottage and her silent loom, at least for a little while, and seek answers. The journey she needed to take wasn't over mountains or across oceans. It was a journey of quiet observation, a journey into the heart of Ethelgard itself, and perhaps into the hearts of its people. She packed a small bag, a piece of dried dreaming moss for comfort, a tiny vial of water gathered from a pool that had only ever known starlight, and her smallest, most delicate moonbeam needle, just in case. As she stepped out into the twilight, the air felt different. It was cooler, perhaps, or just held less of that vibrant, living light she was used to. She walked slowly, allowing her feet to follow the paths that felt right. Not the fastest paths, or the easiest, but the paths that felt woven with the oldest memories of Ethelgard. Her journey took her through the ancient woods, where the trees stood like silent sentinels. Even they seemed less vibrant, their leaves holding less of that captured starlight they usually possessed. She saw creatures that were usually bright and cheerful, moving with a listless gait. The glowworms, whose light used to pulse in rhythm with the stars, glowed faintly, irregularly. She came to a quiet meadow where she often saw the luminous snails. These weren't ordinary snails. They moved slower than slow, slower than a dream, and they left a shimmering trail of captured light wherever they went. Usually, the meadow was crisscrossed with these luminous trails, looking like spilled moonlight. But today, the trails were thin, broken, and faded. A large, luminous snail, its shell spiraling like a tiny galaxy, was inching along, its trail barely visible. Zephyrine knelt beside it. "Good evening, friend," she said softly. The luminous snail stopped, its gentle eyes like tiny pearls turning towards her. It didn't speak with words, but Zephyrine could understand its presence, its feeling. It felt weary and sad. "The threads are fading," Zephyrine said, stating the obvious truth they both felt. "Do you know why? What is happening?" The luminous snail pulsed faintly. Zephyrine felt a gentle impression in her mind, like soft dust settling. Haste, the impression seemed to say. Too much haste. And looking down, not looking up. Haste, looking down. Zephyrine pondered this. Ethelgardians weren't generally a hurried people. They lived by the gentle rhythms of nature, the slow turning of the seasons, the patient growth of plants. But she had noticed a change. People were starting to move a little faster. They were focused on their tasks, their feet on the ground, their eyes on their work. They weren't stopping as often to simply look up, to gaze at the stars, to feel their light, to wonder. The luminous snail pulsed again, another gentle impression. The threads, they feed on wonder, on quiet attention, on belief. When belief dims, the light dims. Zephyrine understood. The cosmic threads weren't just physical strands of light, they were also threads of connection. Connection between the stars and the world, yes, but also connection between the stars and the hearts of the people. When the people were busy, when they were rushing, when they stopped looking up in quiet awe, they were, inadvertently, pulling energy away from the threads. They weren't doing it on purpose, of course. It was just the way things had slowly shifted. Zephyrine thanked the luminous snail, leaving it a tiny, shimmering dust particle from her own pocket, a little offering of captured starlight. She continued her slow walk. She visited the ancient tree at the heart of the woods, the one that remembered the first sunrise. This tree, old and vast, didn't speak either, not in words, but it communicated through the rustling of its leaves, the deep stillness of its roots, the gentle energy it exuded. Zephyrine sat at its base, leaning against its rough, wise bark. She told the tree what she had learned. The tree responded with a soft, deep sigh through its leaves, a sound like gentle wind chimes made of ancient wood. Zephyrine felt an impression from the tree, slow and steady. Patience, it seemed to say. The cosmos moves with patience, weaving haste into the threads, unravels them. Belief is like water to roots. It nourishes. Teach patience. Teach belief. Teach stillness. Patience, belief, stillness. These were the missing ingredients. The conflict wasn't just external in the fading threads. It was also internal within the hearts of the Ethel Guardians, who were forgetting the quiet ways, and perhaps even within Zephyrine herself, who had become so focused on the task of weaving that she might have forgotten the essence of what made the threads strong. She thought about her own frustration, her own sense of urgency to fix the problem quickly. Had her own haste contributed, even in a tiny way? She realized that fixing the threads wasn't just about mending them. It was about re-establishing the connection. It was about reminding the people, gently, softly, of the magic that was still there, waiting for their attention. But how could she do that? She couldn't force people to look up. She couldn't command them to be still. The ancient tree offered one last soft impression. Weave the lesson. Weave patience. Weave stillness. Weave belief. Weave the lesson. Zephyrine returned to her cottage, her heart a little heavier, but also lighter with understanding. She looked at her silent loom. She couldn't weave with the listless cosmic threads right now. They needed nourishment she couldn't currently give them directly, but she could weave with something else. She looked around her cottage, at the dried, dreaming moss, at the starlight-infused water, at the quiet, waiting air. She gathered other things, dust motes dancing in a sunbeam, the sound of a distant, gentle stream, the feeling of soft moss underfoot, the memory of the luminous snail's quiet wisdom, the deep peace of the ancient tree. She sat at her loom. It was still quiet, but she placed her hands on the moonbeam silver and felt its cool, patient energy, and she began to weave. She wasn't weaving with starlight. She was weaving with essence, with feeling, with intention. She closed her eyes and remembered the stillness of the ancient woods. She gathered that feeling, that deep-rooted peace, and began to weave it into an invisible fabric. It was slow work, infinitely slow. Each movement of her hands was deliberate, patient. She wove in the gentle, unhurried pace of the luminous snail. She wove in the quiet wonder of a child looking at the stars for the first time. She wove in the profound, unwavering belief that magic existed, even when you couldn't see it clearly. She worked like this for many days and nights, not with urgency, but with a deep, abiding patience. She wasn't trying to fix the fading light anymore. She was trying to remember and recreate the feeling of connection that made the light strong. As she wove, something began to happen. Her loom, which had been silent, began to hum again. Not loudly, but a soft, consistent vibration, a note of deep peace. The invisible fabric she was creating began to gather light, not from the stars, but from within itself. A soft, internal glow. It looked like a piece of woven moonlight, shimmering with all the colors of deep rest and quiet dreams. When she was finished, she had woven a large, soft, shimmering blanket. It felt lighter than air, yet it held the weight of profound peace. She called it the mantle of quietude. She didn't know what to do with it, not exactly, but she knew it felt important. She decided to share it. She carried the mantle of quietude out into the village square. The air was still lacking the usual vibrant starlight glow. People looked at her, curious. Zephyrine, who usually stayed at her loom, rarely ventured out. She didn't make a speech. She didn't announce a solution. Instead, she simply unfurled the mantle of quietude in the center of the square. It settled on the cobblestones, a pool of soft, internal light. It didn't just lie there. It seemed to breathe. A subtle wave of peace seemed to emanate from it, like the warmest, gentlest sigh. People paused. They had been hurrying, heads down, focused on their tasks. But something about the shimmering mantle made them stop. They looked at it. And as they looked, a few of them felt a gentle urging to simply sit. One by one, hesitantly at first. Then, with a growing sense of relief, people sat down around the mantle of quietude. They didn't talk. They just sat. And as they sat, in the quiet presence of the woven peace, they began to feel their own inner haste slow down. Their shoulders relaxed. Their breathing deepened. And as they sat there, quietly present, something drew their eyes upwards. Slowly, one face after another turned towards the sky. The sky was still dim. The stars were faint. But as the people of Ethelgard sat in stillness, looking up with quiet attention, something shifted. It was subtle at first, like a tiny, distant whisper. The cosmic threads, which had been listless and dull, seemed to feel this renewed attention. They felt the returning wave of quiet belief, and they began to shimmer, just a little. Zephyrine watched, her heart full. She understood now. The threads weren't just connected to the stars. They were connected to the awareness of the people. Their wonder, their attention, their peace. That was the nourishment the threads needed. She didn't need to mend the threads herself with her needles. She needed to help the people reconnect. The mantle of quietude wasn't a magical fix. It was a gentle reminder, a space of peace to help them remember how to be still, how to look up, how to wonder. Night after night, the mantle of quietude lay in the village square. And night after night, people gathered around it. They sat in silence or spoke in hushed tones. They shared quiet moments, looked at the dimming sky, and simply were. And gradually, slowly, like the gentle unfolding of a flower petal, the starlight began to return. A faint thread here would brighten. A dull color there would deepen. The pooling light on the ground became a little more noticeable. The paths through the woods, guided by the luminous snails whose trails were also growing brighter, felt safer again. Zephyrine returned to her loom. Now the cosmic threads felt different. They still needed tending, but they were no longer listless. They felt hopeful. She began to weave again, her nimble fingers dancing among the shimmering strands. But her weaving was different now. It held the patience of the ancient tree, the slowness of the luminous snail, the shared peace of the people sitting around the mantle of quietude. She wove with deliberate, gentle movements. She wove with awareness, with gratitude. She wove in the belief that filled the air whenever someone simply stopped, looked up, and felt the quiet magic of the universe. The nights on Ethelgard became luminous again. Perhaps not as blindingly bright as they had been before, but with a deeper, richer glow. It was a light that felt more grounded, more connected to the earth and to the hearts of the people. The mantle of quietude remained in the village square. It became a beloved spot, a place where people went to find peace, to slow down, to remember to look up. Zephyrine continued her weaving. It was an ongoing task. The threads needed constant, gentle care. But now she wasn't alone in nourishing them. Every time someone paused, every time someone looked up in wonder, every time someone chose patience over haste, they were, in their own quiet way, helping to tend the cosmic threads. The lesson Zephyrine learned, and the lesson she wove into the very fabric of Ethelgard's nights, was that the most powerful connections aren't always the loudest or the most visible. Sometimes they are the quietest, the ones built on patience, on presence, and on the simple, profound act of looking up and believing in the magic that surrounds us. And so, the nights on Ethelgard remained beautiful, not just because of the Weaver, but because the people remembered how to connect, how to be still, how to let the starlight nourish not just their world, but their very souls. Zephyrine would sometimes sit by her window late at night, watching the starlight pool on the ground, listening to the soft hum of her loom, and feeling the gentle rhythm of her world. She knew the work would continue. The threads would always need tending. The world might sometimes forget the importance of quiet, but she also knew that the capacity for wonder, for peace, for connection, lived within every heart on Ethelgard. It just needed a gentle reminder sometimes. And she, Zephyrine the Weaver, was happy to provide that reminder. One patient thread, one quiet moment, one soft blanket of starlight at a time. And as you settle down, dear friend, feeling the quiet peace of this story, perhaps you can feel a little of that starlight too. Imagine those gentle threads connecting you to the quiet cosmos. Feel the gentle hum of peace settling around you. Let the mantle of quietude wrap you in its soft, comforting light. Just breathe, a slow, gentle breath in, and a long, soft breath out. Feel the stillness. Feel the peace. The stars are always there, waiting for you to look up, and the quiet magic is always waiting for you to simply be. Rest well, sweet friend. Rest well. Good night.